Alright, so today we're going to be looking at and reacting to Ben Shapiro's Star Wars tier list. Now, whether you love Ben Shapiro or hate him, doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter what I think of him, doesn't matter what you think of him. The point is that he's a Star Wars fan. So today, I'm going to look at his list and give my opinions on it. So, let's get into it.
Okay, the worst Star Wars film, Phantom Menace, charting in at number 11.
Yeah,
now,
that's a bad take. Straight up bad take.
You're gonna be shocked where I put Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, Attack of the Clones goes there. Bad take. Everyone knows that Last Jedi goes there. Any Star Wars fan who actually has watched Star Wars and watched the sequel trilogy knows Last Jedi is a totally awful movie. And he acknowledges this, I think. I'm pretty sure it comes up later on. But I think Phantom Menace, look, it's not great. I mean, it's all right. I think that the plot is really convoluted and hard to follow. And when you actually think about it, it's really kind of a complex plot. And then I think the CGI, although I'm sure back in 1999 it was great. I'm sure it was a great CGI back then. I just don't think it's held up that well. I think it's kind of, I don't know, aged a little badly. So that's kind of what I think of it. But I would not put it last for anything.
The reason that Phantom Menace is worse is because George Lucas makes a critical error. He thinks that the reason that kids like Star Wars is because they want to see kids.
I kind of disagree. I think that, I know where he's getting with this. You know, Jake Lloyd, young Anakin Skywalker, 9 years old. I understand where he's coming from. I personally just disagree. And I don't think the point of the movie was to appeal to kids by showing them a kid. I think George Lucas himself would say this. The point of the movie is to show the introduction to Darth Vader and where he started off and how he got to where he ended up.
Okay, number 10, Last Jedi.
There we go. That's more like it.
Last Jedi is just flamingly bad. A flamingly bad film. Now, there could have been a moment where the film could have gotten good, right? There's a moment where Rey and Kylo look like they're going to team up, and then it's going to radically change the history of Star Wars, that suddenly the dark side and the light side are fighting on the same side, and all of a sudden the universe changes radically. And then Rian Johnson, because he's an idiot, he has them separate off again, and then you get the ridiculous Luke Skywalker hologram face.
Okay, that's all fine. That's actually a good point. I don't see a lot of people making that point. That's a fair point. We've never seen the dark side and the light side really team up. I mean, yeah, you could argue some Clone Wars episodes, maybe Return of the Jedi, but we've never seen a full-on dark side user and a full-on light side user just come together as one, which does happen in Last Jedi. And then, of course, they do botch it. They do ruin it. They split the lightsaber in half. They, you know, literally and spiritually end Luke's legacy by destroying the Skywalker lightsaber, cutting it down the middle. So that was kind of an L on their part. The bigger reason that people don't like The Last Jedi, which I think he's probably going to get to if I had to guess, is that it completely and fundamentally, A, destroys Luke Skywalker's character, and B, goes against everything that Star Wars stood for up until this point. Everything.
The Last Jedi totally destroys Luke Skywalker's character.
There we go.
And this is one of the problems, as we will see when we get to the next one. One of the problems with the new trilogy is that it is based on destroying all of your old characters. Number 9.
Good.
Force Awakens.
Great take.
Again, people going to think this is controversial. It is not controversial. Force Awakens is a bad film. The reason it is a bad film is not because on its own it is such a bad film. The reason is because it takes all of your old characters and just murders them in front of your eyes.
Absolutely true.
Literally murders them. It takes.
I think people fundamentally overlook this when they look at The Force Awakens. They see, oh, Han Solo's back, and he's like, you know, swaggering, shooting. But I think it fundamentally turns Han Solo, who the whole point of the original trilogy is that Han Solo goes from this rogue, gangster, selfish, doesn't care about anyone but himself and Chewie a little bit, to this guy who comes back and saves the Resistance, who is willing to give it all to help the Resistance. Look what the sequels have done to me. The Rebellion is willing to give it all to help save the Rebellion. And then The Force Awakens comes along and bam, he's back to his old smuggling ways. He's left Leia. He's on his own again. He's a rogue gangster, completely destroying all the work that they made, that George Lucas gave him along the original trilogy. It just fundamentally goes against all of it.
And turns Han Solo into a loser divorced dad flying around the universe like Cheech and Chong, smoking dope in the Millennium Falcon.
What I say?
And then has him murdered at the hands of his own son because Leia is too chicken to go confront her own son. Now, as you will see,
fair point.
You're going to be shocked by where I rank Rise of Skywalker. J.J. Abrams does try to fix this with some lens flare in Rise of Skywalker, but the fact is that Force Awakens is a criminal act against the Star Wars legacy. Number 8, Attack of the Clones. Now, everybody hates Attack of the Clones. I've heard people say Attack of the Clones is the worst of the prequels. It is not the worst of the prequels. Phantom Menace is a worse film than Attack of the Clones. Why? Because Christopher Lee is great, and Count Dooku's character is poorly written, but Count Dooku is the secret hero of the Star Wars prequels.
Let's go! Like or dislike Ben Shapiro, somebody gets it. Count Dooku is one of the shining stars of Attack of the Clones and the Clone Wars and the prequel trilogy as a whole.
He has a pretty good lightsaber battle with both Ewan McGregor and Yoda. I do like his duel with Yoda. Of it is more interesting than Phantom Menace. Now, it does have some of the worst romance in the history of film, right? I mean,
absolutely true. Romance is awful. You know, George Lucas did not write that well, in my opinion. And in my opinion, the CGI is a little worse than Phantom Menace, I would say. Like, I watched it again recently, and I was kind of shocked at how much it looks like a video game sometimes. But the story, I've always said this, I think, as far as I can remember back, in defense of it, the story itself of the prequels is, I find it to be pretty good. I find it to be interesting. I find it to be a good story of Anakin Skywalker's rise and fall. People don't like the dialogue, the CGI, the acting. There's a lot of reasons people don't like it. But generally, when you get down to the core elements of it, you know, I think it's interesting. And I think Attack of the Clones is actually a pretty interesting thing to look at. A pretty interesting movie to watch. So
okay, number 7, Solo. Here we move on into the movies that are watchable.
So that's a very good place to put Solo.
The arena of movies that you would rewatch if you saw them beginning on TNT. His whole hero's journey in the original Star Wars, Han Solo, is from rogue who only cares about himself and is a mercenary.
This is what I was saying.
Self-sacrificing general in the Resistance who's going to get married at the end and have little Jedi babies with Leia. Right? That is his hero's journey, and then they completely revert him back to rogue who only cares about himself in the sequels. Solo doesn't do that. Solo is starting that journey. The problem with Solo is that it sort of gives him the hero's journey before the hero's journey.
That's the problem. It jumps the gun. He's not a hero yet. At this point in time, he should be some guy who trusts no one. He should be the rogue that we all know from the New Hope. Because, you know, why would he be a hero? There's no reason to be. There's no reason for him to be noble. I don't think it's great. I think, honestly, Shapiro got it straight on. Number 7's a good place to put it. So, that's what I'd say.
Solo ranks at number 7. Rise of Skywalker at number 6. So people hated Rise of Skywalker because they are wrong. The part of it that's good is that it actually goes back to respecting the legacy of Star Wars. Because remember, Force Awakens killed off Han Solo for no apparent reason in order to kill off the old to make room for the new. Basically, Rise of Skywalker is, what if I just crap all over Rian Johnson? And I'm all for it, man.
No. This is what people fundamentally get wrong about the sequel trilogy. They think it was J.J. Abrams, and then Rian Johnson wrestles control away from J.J. Abrams and does this wild, bold idea that everyone hates, and then J.J. Abrams comes back in The Rise of Skywalker and does his best to bring the pieces back together. J.J. Abrams was like executive director on The Last Jedi. Or maybe not that high of a position, but he was some top role in The Last Jedi. Like, he was fully behind Rian Johnson, and he had an opportunity to stop Rian Johnson from doing what he was going to do. He's a direct, what's the word for it? Accomplice. As for the whole respecting Star Wars thing, I'm not too sure I agree with that. I mean, I'm not saying he's wrong. I think one of the things with the sequels that Ben, like, fundamentally overlooks is that the sequels not only got rid of old stuff that people liked, they brought in new stuff that was bad, that people didn't like, and in my opinion, was just bad. Like, he's not once mentioned how much of a Mary Sue Ray is, which I know the comments might fight me about. Not my comments, but, like, outsiders. And then he also hasn't talked about how Kylo Ren is the most wishy-washy, like, back-and-forth character who has no discernible plot arc or storyline. He kind of goes where the wind blows him and changes direction depending on the time of day and his mood. Like, it just doesn't work that well, in my opinion. Number
5, Return of the Jedi. So, Return of the Jedi...
That's kind of a fair take.
I would say 2/3 of this movie is fantastic and 1/3 of it is silly. Everything that is Luke and Darth Vader related is
I'll let him talk, but I personally really like Return of the Jedi.
Just fantastic. All of that is great. It has great music. The dynamic between Palpatine, Ian McDermott is fantastic. The dynamic between Palpatine and Darth Vader and Luke is the best thing about the movie. The Ewoks are not great. The space battle doesn't seem to have tremendous consequences.
I think he's kind of right. I think, you know, like Jabba's palace, when you actually analyze it, doesn't make that much sense. Like, it's a great scene. I love Jabba's palace. Doesn't really make that much sense in terms of what Luke's plan actually was, but, you know, it's kind of a fun scene. I would personally, let me say this. I would personally put it probably above A New Hope. I would enjoy this movie more than A New Hope. I think it's a fulfilling end to Luke's story, a good end to the Empire as a whole, and a great conclusion to the story of Darth Vader. That's what I would say about it.
Revenge of the Sith is number 4.
I'd put this higher. I would put this higher.
I rewatched it recently. It's good. It's a good movie. Revenge of the Sith, the last 2/3 of it is really good. Everything from when Palpatine becomes overtly maniacal to the end. Order 66, that whole sequence is very effective, where you're seeing all of these Jedi get shot down and killed.
Definitely true.
All of that is really effective. The Hayden Christensen turn at the end is good. It actually works emotionally when Ewan McGregor is upset about all of this. Now, Hayden Christensen still can't act, but that's just the wages of sin. It's good.
You know, I mean, people always say this, Hayden Christensen can't act. I think that, you know, to some extent, he was very limited by the script. I think saying he can't act is a bit of an overstatement. But I think that in Revenge of the Sith, I almost said Revenge of the Jedi there. In Revenge of the Sith, I think he puts on his best performance by far.
The big flaw in Revenge of the Sith is that the sort of rationale for why Darth Vader becomes Darth Vader doesn't really work too well, because the question becomes why he still works for the Emperor afterward, right? Because he apparently
I think this is kind of an easy answer. I think if you're, no offense to Ben Shapiro, if you're like really like kind of get Star Wars, and it's kind of like, you know, the answer is this: after Padme's dead and Vader believes he's killed her, he sees no other option. You know, he's doomed himself and the Jedi Order and the Republic as a whole. The Emperor is now in control, so any attempt to stop him will look like just pure treason. And what other choices does he have, really? Like, what is his other option in this scenario that he's created for himself? I think Ben Shapiro's wrong about that part. I do think Ben Shapiro's wrong.
Number 3. I'm gonna go off the board. You ready for this one? Rogue One. And I know a lot of people want to put Revenge of the Sith or ROT.
Come on. You can't put Rogue One above Revenge of the Sith. Like, Rogue One, sure, good movie, good story, good Star Wars story. You can't put it above Revenge of the Sith. You can't even put it above Return of the Jedi, in my opinion. Like, honestly. Like, the best I can say for Rogue One is that it provides some good background to a Star Wars movie, but that's not really necessary.
The ending of it is shocking, right? This is one of the new Star Wars films, and one of the original kind of Star Wars recognitions is that nobody who's a major character except Alec Guinness dies in the first 3 Star Wars. Right? Not a single major character
and Yoda,
who's a hero dies in the first 3 Star Wars, at least not of old age, right? I mean, Yoda dies of old age.
Okay.
But Rogue One kills off all the main characters at the end, which is a shock.
That is a plot
I remember
twist.
Watching this in the theater for the first time, I was like, whoa, what did they just do? The final scene where Darth Vader finally lets loose is just ridiculously good. And if you ever watch the mashup,
it's so good. That honestly brings it up a little bit in my book. I still wouldn't put it above those two. That Darth Vader hallway scene, that's insane.
Number 2 is A New Hope. And there's some controversy over whether A New Hope should go in front of Empire, the only reason being that Empire wouldn't exist without New Hope. But New Hope is, in and of itself, a very good movie. Now,
I agree. New Hope's great. I think, looking back on it, I would definitely put Return of the Jedi above it, though. I think it's good. I think it sets up Star Wars nicely. I think that it is worse than Return of the Jedi. And Empire Strikes Back, obviously. And honestly, I would flip a coin between that and Revenge of the Sith. Like, you know, I'm a young guy. I hit the mic, didn't I? I'm a youngster. And I like Revenge of the Sith, and I was around. It's my time of Star Wars. So I like Revenge of the Sith. I would probably flip a coin between New Hope and Revenge of the Sith. Both great movies, but they're both just so different in how they convey the message. I don't know, man. That's a tough one. I would not have put it this high up, probably, though.
This is not a theory. This is not an opinion. It is a simple fact. Empire Strikes Back is the best of the Star Wars movies and one of the best movies of all time. My father assures me that when people saw this in the theaters, they literally...
You know, that's debatable. But I'm not going to debate it. That's a very valid take. I'm not sure if I made a list, I would put Empire Strikes Back up there as the number 1 spot. It would definitely be up there in the top 3, minimum. But it is a great, great Star Wars movie. Just phenomenal. When people look at the sequels and say, oh, well, if Rey's a Mary Sue, then how come Luke isn't a Mary Sue? Like, Luke also did all this stuff without any real training. Yeah, that's true. I admit, Luke sometimes seems like a Mary Sue. Like, shooting the missile into the Death Star first try. Yeah, I'll come forward in a minute. Kind of a Mary Sue moment. But Empire Strikes Back is the turning point. The entire point, and George Lucas would say this too, actually he created it for this purpose, the entire point of Empire Strikes Back is for Luke to get hammered into the ground. Luke Skywalker gets absolutely destroyed in Empire Strikes Back. Like, destroyed. He can't do anything right. He can't master the Force with Yoda. He can't beat Vader in a duel. He can't save his friends. He gets his hand cut off. He just gets roasted over a fire. Like, slow roasted. Turned on a spit. And that's what his character needs. That's what he needs in order to... Those are the challenges and obstacles he needs to overcome. That's what makes his ultimate win in Return of the Jedi so heroic. Is that he's overcome these obstacles that he couldn't before. That, I think, is where the value in Empire Strikes Back really lies. Like, truly. Alright, so if you guys like this style of video, you know, where I react to someone else's Star Wars tier list. Someone's famous, some celebrity, some YouTuber, someone else. If you like that, you'd like to hear my review of it, let me know in the comments. And also, if you enjoyed this video, check out this one right here. I think you'll really like it. I genuinely think you'll enjoy it. Thank you all very much for watching. I really appreciate it. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you. Bye.